And need to start collaboration session. Okay, invite. I'm going to paste it in Slack under the thread for the Zoom call. Okay, just to start the video for the recording, we are working on a developer framework for adding new data types to be replicated by Geo, and this is day 3. I think, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So I started on a little bit before you came on, but basically package file replicator, when it processes the event, it needs to run whatever's going to download the file.
Mm-hmm.
And I started going in the direction of a generic service for downloading the file,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully we can make that happen.
Yeah, maybe we should just go back a little bit and try to discuss the architecture.
Sure.
First. I mean, this is probably going to be useful.
Yep.
This is probably going to be useful anyway. We probably want this kind of generic service or downloader or component or whatever we call it. What I was thinking about was more like on how the replicator would work when it's consuming the data. So I talked with Tom today, and I think we both agree that ideally somewhere in the code base you will just say in a more top-down level, like I need to copy a repository from A to B, or I need to copy a file from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
And this should be like the high-level thing that a developer using our framework will do.
Okay.
And the framework itself should actually do the replication. So that's the part that we are in right now with the blob serves. But still on the DSL of the replicator, I was thinking that the process, whatever is inside the process, should probably be running in a sidekick job. So the whole idea is like this. The event starts with it being fired on the primary. Then it goes to the queue. The queue is replicated to any secondary node. The glog cursor reads events from the queue. And then instead of it actually calling the process method and the process method scheduling something in Sidekick, I think it makes sense that as a step before, we always schedule a Sidekick job, and this like this generic Sidekick job will always call the correct process method. So the process method inside the replicator will actually work as a process method inside a Sidekick job. So to make it as a summary.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't prevent us from finding other sidekick jobs from that process, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think this first step is important because we're not holding the cursor. And I think this is not only important for how we have it right now, but as future possible iterations, if we have something like a message queue, the actual message queue. You don't want to hold the whole thing as a bottleneck as you're processing code on the same thread.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. This relates to the question that I brought up yesterday about can we, like, I'm not 100% sure that we actually can assume that we can do everything asynchronously, or at least in the current world. But maybe that's just me speaking out of like a general fear. So I think I agree with you. I'd rather write the entire queue system to be basically optimistic that it is going to accomplish whatever we intend to accomplish, and anything that is so important that we need to guarantee that it is run, we have to have some other means of doing that, of making that guarantee, like backfill and verification. So I'm agreeing with you. I'm just like voicing this general fear about making the assumption that, you know, these jobs that we fire off will run and will not be lost.
Yeah, this is. I think this is an important concern. So in the ideal world where we have backfilling for everything and we have verification for everything, it's fine to like miss an event because we have like this fail-safe
Redundancy.
Yeah, we have redundancy. So with the current state of things, there is one thing that well, for the jobs that we process now, repositories, we have verification and we have backfilling. We have backfilling for all of them right now.
Mm-hmm.
And for the new ones, I think we expect to have the same mechanisms. So I think it's safe to go that way. Like we can keep existing behavior as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we move them to the new framework, we make sure that they all comply with it.
So, yeah, okay. I agree with you generally, but let me just throw out like a challenge, basically, which I want to see what you think about that. Like you know, this cache invalidation thing, there isn't a redundancy as far as I know. So if the job is lost that performs this, you know, then that's it. There's no fail safe. And then I think similarly for these hashed storage migration and stuff like that, maybe.
Okay, so we should have done both cases. So we must have
deletion.
we must have
Does
a way
that work?
to like let's say that by default they are always async, But you can specify that one is not async and it should be processed by the cursor, like by the main thread. But this is, let's see. So we have problems today because Sidekick's not 100% reliable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we want to be able to actually rely that we're not losing anything. For caching validation, that's not a big deal. It's like a minor inconvenience. I'm trying to assess that the risk is like storage migration at the same time. If we don't replicate the migration, what will happen is that the repository verification will be triggered at the endpoint and will not find the new repository on the new location, and it will fix the lacking of data there. We also still have it on the old directory, so you're not losing data. That's fine, it's recoverable. It's not ideal because you still like have something laying around in an old location.
Yeah.
But it's not like the end of the world. So I think it's also fine.
So there are some issues when we leave something where in an old location.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of like essentially goes back to a really old issue, right? About a security risk. Yeah.
And also, perhaps what we are missing is some sort of cleanup code.
Yeah. Yeah. This happens a lot, I think, or a lot more often than it should. And I think it is our responsibility to clean it up.
I think I know what you're talking about. With the legacy storage, there is a possibility that, let's say, you moved something to another location and someone tries to create a new project or a new something with the same name. Let's say that you're in the same namespace, then they can have access to that old project content. But that's not the case with hashed storage because it's always on disk. It's always a new thing, and it will never collide.
Okay. Yeah. True.
Yeah.
So for a different example, upload deleted event. The event contains information about where the thing is that we need to delete, or same with all of the deleted events. And if we fire off or we enqueue a job and we delete the event, because it's just in a queue, then the job data is the only place where we know how to delete something, and that can be lost.
Well, it can be lost today because that's exactly what we are doing here.
Yeah. Well, so I'm not actually totally convinced that even if we switch from Sidekick to something else, that we would be able to say it's a guarantee.
Well, something like RabbitMQ, it guarantees you because it works with TTL. So the idea is that, like, say, give me a job, and instead of removing it completely from memory, it kinds of reserve that thing for you. Like, say, okay, it's taken by someone, and there is a TTL where you have to at the end you have to say, okay, it's done, or you need to renew that. So if, for example, either your job crashes or takes too long to renew, it goes back to the queue, to the main queue, and this is a guarantee of the architecture.
So, I mean, it is reminiscent of Sidekick, especially with our Sidekick reliable fetch gem.
Yeah.
And there's still another problem, which is like, say a bug is introduced in the code and it's actually not able to delete it. Yeah. Anyways, there isn't actually redundancy, right? Like it's more reliable of a job, but if something does go wrong, which is always possible, there is no redundancy. And so I'm just going to throw an idea out there about this to add a redundancy, which is that maybe the structure of geo all along should have been in like when we want to replicate something, whatever, like we store where it is supposed to be, and on the secondary it also has an independent store of where things are supposed to be, because they can be out of sync, right? And if the time comes to delete something, then we will always have that data. Like say on the registry, for example, we could store where something is supposed to be.
Let's suppose that we're going to change the queue system, like in the near future. One possible way to make it more reliable or to behave as this RepTMQ example would be to have the actual queue being used as this example in RepTMQ. So let's say that we are using something that does support TTL. So when the cursor or whatever consumes that event, like the key of whatever queue produce, we send that as part of the job. So it is still Sidekick job running, but at the end it has like to release the queue, so it goes out. And
I think I've lost you. Can you? I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you for the last 10 seconds. Oh, you know what? I'm on VPN. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm going to disconnect, and I don't know if Zoom is going to handle that. Oh, are you back?
Yep.
Hey, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
Did it froze in the middle of what I was saying?
Yeah, and then I thought, oh, I don't know what's happening. So I disconnected from my VPN, so that probably added another little bit. But can you repeat what you said?
Okay, so the idea is that if we, in the future, we switch to something else as a queue system, let's say something that supports this kind of TTL thing, we could amend our cursor to pass the like the message ID as part of as triggering a Sidekick job, and part of that job will, what it will do is at the end of it, it will release that message. So it will work out almost as RabbitMQ thing, but without us having to move away from Sidekick to something else, which would be a very hard sell for the company, because everybody's used with Sidekick, and unfortunately, it's not that easy to move away.
So, so I don't know. I mean, I suppose that probably will be good enough. But so part of why I think it would be good for Geo to store where something is because currently we kind of like, for every model that we replicate, we kind of like derive where its location is. And we do the same thing on the secondary. And I don't know, it just, like if it changes, then I don't know, it just seems like.
Do you think that there is like a way for us to make, let's say that there are some jobs that are fine to lose, like for example, the replication of a repository.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like the end of the world if we miss one, because it will be eventually recovered. But for the other things, maybe what we need is to actually do it in a 2 steps confirmation thing. So for example, let's say that we absolutely want to make sure cache is invalidated. Maybe what we need to do is have that item in the log, make a proof or a confirmation in a separate table, and then the cursor will have like a double cursor thing. Like it will try to check if those items that require a confirmation actually has a confirmation. So we're like we're patching Sidekick off of it, so we don't have to rely that Sidekick will magically work forever and there will be no bugs and whatsoever. So we fire that, but then later on we check if it was done. It works kind of like the backfilling for the repositories, but for things that there is no way for us to actually confirm or to verify. So we actually verify that something was flagged as done. So a proof of execution, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. And we would only like use that when it's like really critically important. Okay. A lot of times the stuff where it's like, okay, if we lose like deleted events, then I guess it's not like, yeah, I guess it's not a really huge deal. Sometimes customers do come to us with like, oh, why is the secondary using like 3 terabytes and the primary uses 1, or something like that. But I guess like it wouldn't be that bad to just automate some kind of like one of the things, one of the rake tasks that are, or all of the rake tasks that we have that like clean up stuff that shouldn't be there. So I guess that's another way that we could add redundancy without having to like change the whole system. Okay. If we go back to the discussion about the replicator process method being called from a worker, it doesn't seem that different from the when the event is processed, instead of always calling a worker that calls replicator process, it doesn't seem that different from always calling replicator process and then having that decide what to do synchronously and asynchronously.
I think that the main difference is that we don't have to test that the sidekick worker was triggered as part of the. So I was trying to, let's go back a little bit. I was trying to have the main logic be available in one location. So if today we want to like simulate the replication of a repository, you have probably to open 10 different files to figure out what are the parameters that you're passing from here into there and what is like the whole flow. If we understand that that job is receives these parameters and it's part of the framework that it always be executed inside a sidekick job that is generic and we know how it works and we can like provide standard logging and metrics, etc. Then testing that something is being executed means you have to call only one function that you know how it works. So you don't have to test the same thing every time. This should be tested as part of the framework, but not as part of the job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. But what about the special cases where we have to provide the ability to run things synchronously?
I don't think we ever got that done, right? Like, because the events are generated by threads and like by different process, there is no guarantee in the order today. Like, and it can be generated randomly by any web worker. And also, because of that, and because of how transactions work in Sidekick in Postgres, there's also no guarantee that the secondary will see the database, the data there in the same way. We have a few situations where we miss the counter, and then later on we recover from that. So there is already no predictability into that.
Are you referring to just the order that things are running?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, the order. So there is no guarantee already that the order will be the same.
Yeah, I agree on that, and there's some outstanding issues there too. But I thought we were thinking that we would provide the ability for certain events to be run.
Oh, sorry, synchronous.
Yeah.
Maybe we should always go asynchronous.
Yeah, and just, I mean, yeah, I don't know. We could just accept that sometimes. I don't know. it's not gonna, it may not work perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Another thought, I don't know, this is probably stupid. When we generate the event, we could specify like synchronously. I don't know. That's probably crappy.
If what we actually want is to make sure that something has priority to be like executed sooner. So let's say that you have a queue with 300,000 things to replicate. When the cursor goes by, it's super fast and starts scheduling jobs. But at some point, one job you want to execute it right away. I think that's the intention of the synchronous ones. What we can do instead is maybe allowing you to specify a different queue or a priority queue or low priority queue, something like that, as part of this job consumption. So if something is like really, really important, then it must be executed as soon as possible, then that goes like to the high priority queue. And things that are like download the terabyte of something whenever possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess I was still kind of thinking of the idea that some things that we run in when processing the event, you know, that they're really important to be run at all. But
and we can actually, I think we can actually pass configuration parameters to the event definition. So we have like this line where we say event and the event name. And there is absolutely nothing preventing us from passing a bunch of configuration things to that event. And then we can use that, for example, to decide whether process will be synchronous or asynchronous, or whether we are going to put it in a high priority queue or low priority queue.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to just bring up problems. I think I agree. I would rather write the queue stuff to be optimistic.
I think like this kind of discussion is actually the most important part of what we are trying to do. So it's always good to have different opinions and then try to figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Cool. Okay. All right. So let's do it then. So the difference is like, where are we processing it again in the event? Oh yeah. So currently we have log cursor events event process, which is going to be run by the log cursor. And we get the replicator. So oh no, so we wouldn't get the replicator. We would just like enqueue a job for, you know, I don't know.
I think enqueue job or enqueue process or enqueue job, yeah, enqueue job is fine. And I think what we want to give it is the payload. How is the replicator defined here?
We did that. in here, geo event, replicator.
Oh, it's part of, okay. Maybe we need to pass the event as well. Like the event ID. And then.
In here, add to the.
Well, actually just the event ID then, if that makes sense. And then from the job we recover, we do the like these 2 lines from the sidekick worker.
Yeah. So is there any concern about the fact that the event will be, this event will be pruned? Like, since the cursor passed it, if all secondaries have run this process,
Okay, they can remove
they
it.
can prune this, yeah. So I would say just pass the payload. Does that sound reasonable?
Pass the payload, and we need to pass the replicator identifier or something like that.
Yeah. But would it make sense to actually instantiate a replicator here and then call something where it it enqueues the job, or no? No.
The replicator itself. Yeah, I think it does make sense. Let's see. I think it does make sense because then, like, it should know how to like recreate itself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But then this is like not the concern for the replicator itself. It's the concern for the queue.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
So sorry, in the event, we have, we're able to instantiate replicator because payload we know will have model ID. So yeah, if we just, and we also
Need the event name.
need the event name. So payload and event name, yeah.
And model ID.
That's in payload, right?
I don't. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that we're just taking all the data that is in the geo event and giving it to the job. I think maybe it seems a little weird now, but after we move away from the log cursor and everything is going through here, then we'll probably be able to like get rid of one step of indirection or something like that.
I think what is weird is that we're handling this as another event, if that makes sense. And it's just where the code is that is a little bit weird. But maybe it can be moved like to the main loop, and like if unless it's this type of event does whatever it's doing now, otherwise do this new way of handling it. Because the idea is that we are going to remove code from the cursor.
Yeah.
Like all these event files will be removed as we migrate them to.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of what I mean. So eventually, instead of process event log doing instantiating this thing, doing new, and then process. Here,
Mhm.
it'll just enqueue a job, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
the
that's
idea.
like the future, right? Okay.
Mhm. Probably it's something that we can even refactor like later on, but
Yeah.
it's easier to use it this way right now.
Okay. So like, um, is it dot new? Well, okay, we could just do this in here, yeah? Just like nothing happening.
Yeah, makes
Just let me
sense.
put, oops.
I just need to answer the door. Just a moment.
Okay. Oh, there's not a namespace. Oh, these are namespaced. Yikes. Ay, ay, ay. You've selected the code in the file.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. No, I don't know if you were about to like copy
No,
something or. Okay.
I just mistype it.
So I think I've written. So if we go back to the event, right, where the daemon runs process, it calls event worker.new with the event data, perform async. Event worker is here. It calls event service. I don't know if that's necessarily needed, but here we are. An event service instantiates a replicator and calls process created. Although, I don't know, I think we're still kind of like not really 100% sure what's happening with calling process or whatever, but whatever, we call something on the replicator and give it the payload, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe we should talk about this. I think we confused things because we flipped around the publish and publish created thing. Oh, and by the way, I moved that into replicator here. So, because all we did was call publish and hand the params through. So it kind of seems unnecessary to write in the package file replicator. But this process thing is flipped around, right? So here we were planning to have process be called with created or something like that, and then we would send.
And then the process will call
created.
the right. Will call the right model.
I think that is actually the order we want to do it here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of backwards from the publish stuff, which I don't know if that feels a little weird. So like here we would actually do
Event name.
oh yeah, event name. Oh, of course it needs to be event name. Yeah, so it doesn't even make sense to call process created because yeah, okay.
Yeah, otherwise you have like to use Sandy or something like that.
Yeah. Although okay. Now it's a little now I feel like we should almost pass replicator name in the event, because I don't know, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like we already instantiated a replicator using the event name, and then we're going to call process with the event name. Like I don't know, it's a little weird.
Yeah. The thing is, because we decided to put the replicator as part of the event, then we have to do this kind of thing. But then maybe we can go back and make the replicator be its own, or make it replicable be its own field. It is what we are trying to like.
Yeah.
We're trying to avoid like creating this thing, but then there's this method being called everywhere, like to go back and forth. Maybe just make replicable something on the table.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me at the moment.
It also makes it easier to search in the future if we have to.
Yeah. I think it makes sense.
Maybe a replicable name or just replicable, and instead of event name, just event, or oh yeah, event name can still be event name, but replicable.
I think Douglas would still prefer it to be replicable name.
Okay.
And I think that would be fine. Yeah, I don't think there's too much issue there. Okay.
Well, the advantage of not using something like MongoDB is that column names doesn't cost us more, like to be more descriptive. Like it costs the same amount of bytes. So.
All right. Before I make that schema change and all that, let me kind of like commit where I am.
I need to break for a little bit to have lunch and have dinner, and then I can come back soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Fine?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, of course.
Okay. See you in a bit.
Okay, see ya. Okay. I don't want that. Stage.
Hey,
Hey,
I need to turn on the site again.
turn on what?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so what I've done while you were gone is add the replicable name field to the geo event. And that's pretty much it. But the tests that we did have are green.
I just need a moment to get the new headset because this one is out of battery.
Hmm. I am thinking about duplicating code from the downloaders and transfers classes, just to make it easier to change or get away from, patterns that we might not want. Okay, so I'm gonna start off by kind of like copying mostly, I think. Oops. Hey, Gabriel, just a naming thing. I'm not sure what it should be, but at first I was calling blob download service from process created, but I think it makes sense for a replicator to be able to call download, so or something like that. So it would just call that method. Do you agree? And what do you think about download or sync or? You know, I don't know.
Okay, so what we have now is the replicator. You started by defining the event. Publishing a event is easy, so this will create it will create the create thing automatically, correct?
Yeah, it's created at the moment, but maybe it should be
created.
Mm-hmm.
And that will do the scheduling automatically. When it starts processing on the other side, it will call process created. I don't think we can assume this. So the idea is that we should like instantiate something to be used as part of the process. Is that the idea? Like the replicator will instantiate the service with whatever it's needed. Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's say. So I had something in mind when I was discussing with Tom today.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say this hypothetic code here. So we define it created, and then we have like I don't know, service, and it can be a blob or poster or what else we have.
That's all we have at the moment. Yeah.
Containers, I think. Well, but let's say that we have like this 3 different types.
Mm-hmm.
So the blob would be what we have now. The posters would be something else. Service. Let's say that what we are trying to do here is like this. Sync with blobs. And then, because we know it's blobs, we can do something like this. This. Let's say options. With something like that, like this.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there will be replicators with events that use different kinds of sync services? Is that why? Like multiple, that it will use multiple different sync services?
Maybe. So for example, this, so let's try to think it a little bit different. the download surface is only intended to create, right?
Okay.
We probably need something to delete.
Mm-hmm.
So either it will become like a fat service that does everything, or we would have like specialized versions like a service creation and service deletion for every kind of thing. We don't do renames because we want everything to be idempotent, and then if we have mutation, it's hard, so there's no rename. But maybe, for example, we have like cache, and cache will not have a sync with or something like that. But maybe let's say that this is service, and then something like this. Or just like this, and then that will like populate service for us, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Or connector or something like that we can use.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So this should be like part of the replicator, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit hard to see what's going on because we don't have all the events. So created and removed it, or deleted, I don't know.
Yeah. I see kind of like the idea, but I don't see how it is beneficial over just doing this directly like this.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know either.
Other than creating a couple steps of like having to know, how this works. I mean, like, it might even be better, like, for example, like, I don't know, or something like that. I don't know. But like, I guess it doesn't matter really either way.
Yeah, I prefer it to be like a little bit more explicit, like we're doing right now. And then if at the end we notice that we can automate it completely, then maybe all we need is like these 2 lines here.
Yeah, I could see like if we implement this stuff for a number of different replicables and we see like, well, we're doing the same thing over and over, then I could see going to something like that. The reason that I was thinking that this would not only, not do this, but it would call something else is because we're going to need that in other contexts, right? Like during backfill, maybe. Yeah, during backfill. And, maybe basically during backfill. I guess that's it. I don't know. What do you think?
I think we should try to do it the way we are doing right now and then reevaluate, because it's too abstract. I can't
Sure.
can't make
Okay.
any decision.
Yeah. Okay. I think I think the good thing is it's not set in stone, and we could change it. That's not too big of a change either way,
Yeah.
I think. Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just continue this way for now.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
how about we invert this? Like we know what are the types that depends on the legacy one.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, everything else goes to the framework. But then adding something new to the framework doesn't require editing like this file.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The one thing that I thought about that though is I could see like when we move upload to the new way, but we would want to call it upload, but that's fine because we can oh no, right. That's fine. Then we would just delete it out of the
Yeah.
out of the array. Yep, that makes sense. One annoying thing is I think uploads have a lot of random types. I'm not sure.
You mean like avatar and attachments
Yeah.
and all that stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't it?
I think so.
Where is that? Oh, here. Base file service. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Okay, we have a list.
I guess for now we'll reuse.
Yeah, we can just point to
this method.
The constant.
Oh, or the constant. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, or the method. Yeah, makes sense. Even more, just use the method.
Okay. Also, job artifact and LFS. Okay. Actually, I think it might. I don't think there's any risk in duplicating this.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't think there's either. Because we're not adding anything new there.
Yeah, and that way it'll be clear.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Then you can just come in and delete, whatever from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, so now we need blob upload service, although I'm gonna leave that alone. It's gonna receive params where type is actually replicable name, and ID is model ID, which is the same. Cool. Okie dokie. And I was at blob downloader because it's using the same URL. Instead of file type here, it's gonna be, what did I say? Replicable name, which we're gonna get from the replicator. Initialize instead of with file type and file ID, we're gonna give it replicator. Request data. This is stuff for GeoAuth token.
I can probably refactor something.
Yeah.
As well.
Expected checksum. Uploader. Okay. At the moment, I suppose it won't change. At the moment, blobs or files or uploads of all kinds are done with uploaders in GitLab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that probably won't change. Okay.
Yeah, what we can probably do is simplify this whole thing.
Yeah.
So one thing that the last time that I saw how like we are using the API for like this kind of stuff is that we ended up building a kind of a controller, but with a different name. So the uploader is more or less like a controller, but it's like it's instantiated by Grape, but it's a controller nonetheless. Like it does everything a controller does.
Yeah, retriever, you mean, or?
Oh, the uploader itself. Like it does a lot of things. Like it handles the request parameters. It does validation, and it does everything a controller will do, but just in a weird form.
This one, file upload service.
I think it comes from the base build from. Right. What is called by the API?
File upload service.
Yeah, this one. So it, yeah. So it does decode authorization, and then it calls the retriever, does JWT stuff. So maybe one thing that we can improve here is like separate the first step, which is the authorization, to a different class. It actually should be done on Grape level, not as a separate thing. I think you can write custom code to Grape. I think they actually have this kind of use case where you have like your own custom authentication logic.
Oh, okay.
And then it's part of it, and like this shouldn't be concerned about the request itself. It should be concerned about retrieving the file and streaming it down the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Custom validators, let's see. Okay, you can create a custom middleware. Master custom middleware for authentication.
For now, I've moved the JW request decoding and scope valid check out of file upload service into the Geo API. Because what used to happen was if the JWT scope was not valid inside of file upload service, then the service would return nil instead of a response. And then down here we would call unauthorized in that case.
Yeah, makes sense to get it out. Also, go back a little bit. The retriever, the base retriever.
Yeah.
So it also again concerned about like how it's going to error things back to the request.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that the retriever should be doing that. Like it should only pass the file. Like either it gets the file or doesn't get the file. Like how we are going to present this, and it shouldn't be here. Maybe we can actually use a presenter to do exactly that or something.
Mm-hmm.
That line. And then we can like delete almost all of this code.
Yeah. It looks like
If we turn it, let's see, if we make it into like a simple active model kind of thing, that represents the file itself that we are trying to retrieve, and it doesn't, we don't have to call it a retriever, we just call it the file or something like that. Then we can use a presenter to like decorate it with something if it's needed, or a generic decorator that can accept any kind of file and does like this type of request. But this is like being done on grape level. So we're going to use like the grape decorator and not like try to do it ourselves here.
Hmm.
We can remove code and remove complexity as well.
Yeah. Do you think, let me see. So in the end, we call present carrier wave file, or we error with a particular code. Do you think what we're doing like is the changes we're talking about are safe enough? You know what I mean? Because like we're going to feature flag what we're doing, but if we make a lot of changes to how this works, then maybe we, you know, I don't know.
What we could do is create a new endpoint for the new thing and an old endpoint for the old thing.
Yeah, do you think it's worth creating a new endpoint? Maybe it is.
At this point, if we're going to simplify everything, I think it does make sense.
Yeah.
Because then we can do this feature flag. Otherwise, we are going to be like limited in what we can do.
Yeah.
Like some simple like refactors, like you just did now. I think it can be safe. But if we're going to change more, then maybe.
Yeah.
And let's say that if you're going to have like two endpoints that act almost like the same, we can remove all the blob upload service class code, because that's the legacy will be to one point and it's going to use one service class, and the new one is going to be to a new one.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to specify all of this.
Yeah.
And the goal is at the end to remove the old endpoint.
That sounds good to me. I'm trying to find Zach's issue about making a general API.
My understanding about these use cases that like this is an internal API, so we are fine to like remove stuff. So we shouldn't be like too worried about supporting it for long term or any kind of replicable options.
Yeah.
Replicable. We can use that as well. Why not?
Right? I mean, essentially start working towards this. So how do you feel about the structure here? Blob, this would be blob, not file, I think.
Yeah.
On how we're talking about it, but
I think I like the word transfer.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be transferred, because whereas like if we're just looking at the API as its own thing.
Yeah, I don't think it needs transfer.
It doesn't need transfer. Yeah, geofile.
Because it's the location of a resource. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. I think it's a good idea.
So in this case, replicable is replicable name, and then after that would be /ID, model ID.
I think so.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Yeah. Okay. Let's go with that. So we could structure the work or divide the work here at this point. If we agree on that piece, one of us could do the upload side and one of us could do the download side.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're working on something else, you know, then you can, that's fine too.
No, yeah. So today I think I finally finished the hash storage migration.
Oh, wow,
And
nice.
yeah, so there were like 4 remaining items, and we know now why they're failing, and it's due to permission on disk. So not our fault.
Okay, yeah.
And
But like
yeah, I
due
know that.
to some historical accident or
Yeah, yeah,
something?
probably. It's hard to know when that happened, but probably some support ticket that required
Yeah,
intervention, and something was still in a bad shape.
yeah.
So that, as far as I know, this is the priority. So yeah, we can totally split it.
Awesome. Oh, you focused my attention. Did you see that?
I think I pressed the wrong button. Yeah. It's a bit late for me today, so you choose what you want to work on, and then just write on the issue, and tomorrow I'll continue on the other one or something. That's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, let's go with I'll keep working on the download side. And
Okay.
if you are able to work on the primary upload side, then we should be able to meet in the middle.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you again for joining me on day 3. Yeah, this is actually a lot of the work. This part, I think.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can finish it tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know.
Tomorrow or Monday. Yeah.
We'll see. But we need to feature flag, and then I think it would be fair to say that, you know, it's been getting like reviews
Yeah.
as we go along, and then maybe hand it to like Ash or something, because he hasn't been really a part of this, and ask him to merge with the understanding that this is like a feature flagged work in progress. Anyways, that's what I hope we can do Monday, ideally.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, and have a good night.
You too. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
See ya.